Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It gives us great pleasure to be bringing you this new intro promo for the Certified Penetration Testing Professional, the CPENT program. Right here with us is the actual main author of the program, Kevin Cardwell.
That's me.
So we basically want to give you an overview, unscripted, of delivering a program that's going to be focused on, you're going to pass the exam, but we're going to teach you the skills for doing a job. You know, the importance of getting certified to say, yes, I can do that job is important, but for us, we're seeing a huge lack of skills in cybersecurity. And that's why we're going to be delivering the program in a way that's not just talking about the content and going through the general phases of penetration testing. We're going to be merging that and fusing that into doing the job as a penetration tester using toolkits. So why don't you say a few words there, Mr. Cardwell?
Okay, thank you, Wayne. So the key is with the CPENT, when I was asked to write the CPENT, was give somebody industry skills. And that's the goal of the CPENT. When you walk out of that exam, and Wayne knows because he's done the CPENT, you will have the skills to be able to participate as a team member in a penetration test. If you get the LPT master, then you might have enough skills to actually run the test yourselves and stuff like that.
All right, now we've got to interrupt you there for a minute there, Chief, because the key point here is exactly as Kevin was saying, that I took the exam was 2 12-hour sessions, and I didn't buy into it initially. It was very frustrating. And so this is the part where I'm speaking openly with you folks, that you can understand how important it was for me to go through the pain. If you don't go through the pain, you're really not learning to do it on your own. If you just follow in a lab guide of 300 steps, you're not really learning to do it on your own. And so for me, that was one of the big frustrating parts, was realizing that you've created the content in a way that forces you to learn it. And that's why for me, after going through those phases in pain, in some cases where you're not getting the understanding of whatever concept you're doing because you weren't putting in the right effort. You wanted to follow the steps, and then you're not really learning.
Well, again, the task was create something like no other. And that's what I did. Unfortunately, most certifications have you with the target directly in front of you. Target's not directly in front of you unless you're doing internal testing. And even if you're doing internal testing today, that target directly in front of you is going to have Windows Defender, it's going to have firewall, it's going to have all these other protections in place. So with CPENT, that's what we did. We took targets, but we put something between you and the target, be it software related with Windows Defender, the firewall, or anything like that, or actual device related. You have physical network segments that you have to break through. And that's another key component. Ingress or inbound traffic, you have to map the attack surface. So with the CPENT, not only do you have to map the attack surface of the target, you got to map the attack surface of the filtering device between you and the target, right?
And can I ask you a few questions on
Sure.
What makes it so unique is that, we've been doing pen testing, since the early
1992.
Well, yeah, I was a little bit after that, though. Yeah. I've been doing it since like 2003, right? And so what I can tell you is, even though you've been doing pen testing as long as you have been, Kevin's background is from the Navy, and he's learned everything in technology where it's not just your physical servers and workstations, it's everything from critical infrastructure, it's your routers, so it's everything that you can find. Think about walking into a corporate building. What kind of technology are you going to have? Is it a petroleum manufacturing facility, as an example, or is it just an office block with accountants, right? Yep. So talk about a little bit about how you've built the different ranges, why you added so many different components, because it's not just pen testing servers and web applications.
Right. Well, if you remember, it's about 15 years ago now, we did an engagement together in the Middle East, and that was an oil and gas company. So I took that same network that we encountered 15 years ago, and I reproduced it the best I could with the CPENT. So with that, we had originally wireless, but we took the wireless out of the CPENT because it was too much of a challenge. So there's 5 that remain. There's Active Directory, because you get the Active Directory environment. Everybody complains about the Active Directory because they don't give you direct access to the domain controller.
Yeah,
but
it's
what
real
active
world,
directory?
right?
Yeah, what
It's
active
set up in
directory
the real
role is going to
world.
get exactly? You have to break through a jump box, and then from the jump box you get to the other side, and then the forest opens up. So that's the big one for Active Directory. IoT, because IoT is really popular, and Internet of Things. In our case of the oil company, they had sensors we had to test, things like that. Binary analysis exploitation, because we had application testing to do as well there, and mainly the binary analysis so you can prepare for the required data you need to be able to actually exploit the software, right? And then the pivoting, because pivoting is such a critical component of everything that everybody does. You have to pivot, right?
The network, right?
Yeah, it's the pivot.
And so speak about your background when it comes to networking, why networking is so crucial, and so many people don't get the fundamentals.
Don't understand
You know, so when I started doing networking, it was in the late 1990s. And I forgot about some of those skills because you don't do a pen test where you're doing everything from A to Z. You're going to have different pen test team members doing different responsibilities. So it's not a one-man band show.
Team.
But your background in networking is you set up the internet for Navy ships, right?
Right.
So
well, yeah.
you know it inside out because you had to keep putting fires out.
Exactly. And the thing to remember is if you don't have a route, you'll never get to the application that you have to exploit. So what we discovered was it's a lost art today of people understanding that you have to detect where the route is actually available in your network that you're testing. So let me give you an example. You get that jump box in the case of the Active Directory. Once you get that, that opens up the other network segments, but you have to do everything through that jump box. That first machine that you exploit, everything has to go through it. So you have to understand how to configure and build those. And what we did with the CPENT was, I can't in a normal 5-day class environment, if you take it live, it's hard to do all the scripting and everything and cover all these different types of scripts. So in the CPENT, you have appendices that actually goes through that scripts and stuff like that. Because you need to pick 1 or 2 scripts that you're good at, because once you get that first access on the box, you're going to be limited to either in the Windows world, a command prompt or PowerShell, and in the Unix and Linux worlds, you're going to be limited to Bash, Python, or one of those.
All right, so we want to talk a little bit more about the packets, because for me, when I was doing packet capture analysis, was like way back in the NT days, right? So we had a 3-day course. It was boring as hell back then, because all you had to do was analyze like DNS and WINS and all the kinds of packets. But the depth of what I learned was amazing. So there was a problem with like DHCP service. You had to go and look at the packets. And so it had been 20 years plus that I'd been doing a lot more packet capture analysis. So for me, one of the challenging parts was diving into the packets. What do you want to say about the challenges that you set up there? Because you know your networking stuff inside out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is everything takes place at the packet level, right? So what I tell everybody is everybody tries to get up to layer 7. Well, what about layer 2, layer 3 down there? Even layer 1, binary 1s and 0s, I don't even mess with that. But layer 2, the data link layer, when you got the hexadecimal, layer 3, when you're networking, you're routing, that's what you want to master. Because when you master that, you'll run circles around everybody else. So what do I mean by that? I mean, if you understand the underlying actual packet level, you can manipulate the packet in such a way, by the time it gets up to the sensor or monitor or whatever it is, it doesn't look like a normal packet. There's all kinds of tools out there for doing that. But in the CPENT, what we want you to do is analyze what the network is telling you. Read the network. If you send in a send packet to a TCP port that is open, you get back send ACK. If it's closed, you get back a reset ACK. If you get back anything else, you got to filter a device between you and that target. Now your next thing you have to do is try to map the attack surface through that device or target. Now you got 3 options when it comes to that device when you encounter it. You have to attack the device itself. You can find vulnerabilities. There's a huge Cisco iOS vulnerability that came out not that long ago if the web server is enabled. But that's your job as a tester. Your job as a tester is to map that attack surface, document what you find, and actually tell the client what they have to do to mitigate their risk. So let's look at pen testing in 3 simple steps. Map the attack surface. determine the risk of that attack surface and how to mitigate that risk. The client doesn't care if you write 1,000 lines of code or if you run Metasploit. That's why in the CPENT, we don't care what you use. I don't even care if you use Core Impact or any of these commercial tools. I don't care. The key is understanding that systematic process, reading what the targets are telling you and the network's telling you, because remember, the target's not directly reachable like in some of these other things. So once you've done that, then you leverage from that and you create a professional report. That's what pen testing is all about.
It's not like you're playing some capture the flag game. That's the big differentiator, because I've been doing a lot of those over the years, and for me I was going like, okay, this is like a capture the flag game, and that's a big mistake, because you actually have to look at, well, if you're going to send traffic, exactly as you're saying, when you send a SYN, you've got to get a SYN back. You've got to look at your communication from the packet level, and how many people have forgotten the network at the packet level. And do you want to talk about the majority? That's like even the OSCP folks that have just passed that as an example. This is a great exam, but
the target's directly in front of you.
Exactly.
That's the whole problem, and it's focused on exploitation. It's focused on exploitation. And the problem I have with the other vendors, and I usually don't mention names, Wayne has mentioned names, that's fine, is it's not realistic. And for me, when you walk out of that exam, I wanted you to have the skills to be able to participate as a pen tester, because we need people.
That's
we've been doing it for way too long, and it's time for let other people do it.
The amount of people that are certified, just think about it, right? So they get certified, no matter what. We're not going to talk about the names of certification, but let's say they go and take a course, they get certified 5 years ago, and they're not keeping up with what they learned that 5-day course, as an example, right? And that's part of the problem. So the reality is, why do we have a huge, shortage of skilled professionals? Is because everybody thinks if they get the cert, they get the job. But they actually have to be able to do the job. So the cert's just verifying that you got the skills and the ability and the knowledge, the theoretical knowledge. Right. It doesn't teach how to do the job, though.
And that's where the CPENT's different.
And
because
that's why
you
I
have
had
to
an
pass
issue
it
in the beginning.
because we didn't give you the 100% solution, right? So we got a lot of pushback. So you have a lot of people at EC Council that are great trainers, but they don't have the ability to go that extra step. So what we did in the CPENT is we take you about 80% of there, but we don't give you 100% step by step.
Okay, wait, you got to tell me what the Navy used to tell you about sucking the eggs. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, yeah, I had a Commodore, an Admiral, 1-star Admiral in the Navy, and was part of a squadron. He always said, you don't tell people how to suck eggs. Well, what does that mean? You tell people what you want them to do, but you don't tell them how to do it. Why is that? Because everybody's different. Everybody learns different ways. So with the CPENT, we give you a lot of the what, but not the how. And I've got a lot of feedback from that. A lot of people push back on that, especially for other instructors.
I had that
and Wayne did as well.
But you got to put
because they don't want to do it that way. They want you to give them the 100% step by step.
And then they want the automated tools to go like, okay, let's run Nmap. Okay, that port's open now. Use this exploit. That's not how it works. So I was lazy, and I had to get back into picking up my tools and actually using them in the way they were designed to be used.
And on purpose, what I did was I gave you configuration errors, because it's nice. We all love these places. I won't mention places you can go and play, and they got great targets, all that stuff. But they have a cron job calling back to you every so often, and then you actually modify the cron job to open your shell. Well, that's great and that's fun. It's not realistic.
Yeah, it's not real world. And again, so if you're doing a pen test, you've got to learn what you've got to do as your job. It's not going to help you go like, okay, well, when they're doing this capture the flag, they set up an automated, phone home server. And would you find that in the real world? No, because they've got a security operations center, they got the endpoints, they got all the technology that you can't just run those basic scenarios in the real world.
And for example, in the OT, the IoT, the SCADA IoT type section of the exam, that's exactly what we've done. We found a back door in the real live test, and in that back door, that real live test, we actually discovered somebody, at least they used Secure Shell, but they went from the IT network to the OT network using Secure Shell. So we put an actual similar type of lab in there. But to be fair, we made it a little bit easier than what we ran into out there in the testing, because you've only got hours. We had days and weeks even to do the testing. So we didn't make it as difficult as the challenges we faced. But it does, there's one way from the IT network into the OT network, and you have to actually discover it, just like we kind of discovered the back door that did the same type of thing.
So what we're going to be doing different, because what we feel the industry needs is skills. And so we're going to be bringing our tools for pen testing to the program. So if you take a 5-day program, you're getting 2 trainers. The author, which, you know, I can tell you right now, Kevin's mentored me over the years, where I was a junior pen tester when we started doing pen testing. Because he was doing this way back in the Navy when, you know, in the late 1990s.
When you didn't have
No, it wasn't called pen testing.
INMAP wasn't around. No, our name was security testing. So give EC Council credit. They came up with license penetration testing, which is a really cool name. Yeah, our security testing wasn't a popular name.
So we're going to show electric vehicle hacking. We're going to be showing you RF, IoT, OT, and we're going to be showing you all the different tools. We've got an amazing young intern that's going to be working full time for us as soon as he's finished his cyber degree, and he's probably going to go on to his master's.
Already got several published CVE vulnerabilities to his name.
Yeah. So we're going to be bringing in some young blood and bringing you the latest and the greatest. So we'll have guest stars that come in, because you know the amount of people that we learned. I remember hanging out on the boat with George Kurtz from CrowdStrike now, right? I mean, these are huge names where you can barely go and touch them because they're worth so much money nowadays. But we've been in the industry for so long that we know these guys personally, and all we want to do is actually help to decrease the skill gap by giving people the knowledge they need to do their jobs. Because, hey, you know, I've got to talk about, you were talking once, I remember, about we losing the game, right? And I was like, well, we've got to be optimistic. Well, we are losing the game, Chief. I've got to tell you, the reality behind what's going on right now, if you just go and look at Bleeping Computer or the Hacker News and any of these blogs, right now we're not flaring up so well as opposed to some of the other foreign, you know, state-sponsored attack vectors. As an example, we've seen the solar winds, right?
And remember, the key is, I was doing the DoD Red Team 94, we'll say, so 30 years ago, since it's 2024 almost, stuff like that. That process I taught the DoD Red Team members is the same process I teach today. The difference is the tools we have. When I started, we didn't even have INMAP, and the targets you go up against. As Wayne was just talking about, you have the car, the autonomous vehicles, all these different things, the drones, as Wayne does a lot of research in the drones. You have the IoT, which we actually have in the CPENT as well. It doesn't matter. It's a target. The only thing that changes is the tools and the target you go up against. The process doesn't change. It's a systematic process.
But what have people lost? They've lost the innate curiosity to go and look at the mechanics. So they just look at the console and they assume the mechanics are what they assume them to be, but they're not. That was one of my mistakes. Because I made this assumption that it was a flat network as an example, when I was like, holy crap, I've got to go in and jump through hoops here. But after doing it, for me, the takeaway was I was so much better skilled in other areas that I hadn't been looking at doing pen testing for, you know, over 25 years.
And that was the goal, because we've seen so many skills lacking when it came to participating in a professional penetration testing engagement. So because of that, that's why we did the CPENT the way we did it.
So exactly.
Even though I took a lot of flack, the first 300 failing.
Nowadays, look how we're using AI and ChatGPT for some of our research. So let's be honest, when you were doing pen testing back then, that's when you had the true skilled person, because there was no automated tool. You had to go and do everything manually. Craft your packets, send the packet stream. So there was no automation with the Nmaps and whatnot. And that's where, again, we wanted just to bring you a program that is going to give you the on-job skills. You're going to be able to learn the right tools of the trade, and you're going to be learning from somebody that has been my mentor for over 15 years, going on 20 years. And honestly, folks, if I've learned as much as I wouldn't be anywhere near where I've been able to get to if it wasn't for this man and him taking my crap. Because in the beginning, I was like, I was bitching as hell about everything. I was like, well, come on, what do you mean 80%? You're only going to give them 80%, so we're going to go and figure the rest of the stuff out? Yeah. And that's why it worked.
Tactical industry skills.
That's the key point.
That's the biggest thing we do at Cyber2labs. That's our whole goal. Give you the ability to do the job. The job skills is what we need. Certifications are nice and they're great, but we want you to be able to do the job.
Yeah, so I've got to give you that much. We're losing the war right now, the cyber war. And so how do we increase the score and balance the playing field? Increase the skilled cybersecurity professionals we have, because everything's being targeted. Critical infrastructure right now, never mind the global warming, we got big issues with the cybersecurity. And we don't have people that can defend properly. So whilst the CPENT's amazing, your latest book's going to be more targeted towards deception, but you add in another version, so you've got so many cool things to bring to the table.
And after 25 years of being on offense, pen testing, all that stuff, I just started do some defense. And what I've done is the network mine concept, being in the Navy and stuff like that, and that's all my deception stuff. So,
so the reverse deception. We've got a lot more coming out, but we wanted to bring you this. So this is going to be the first couple of seats. We're going to give you a real great price, because as veterans, you know, Kevin's from the Navy, I'm from law enforcement. I've been shot, stabbed, had a lot of near-death experiences. We had to help, and the way you help is by actually going the right way, showing people how to do it, even though it might, you know, cheese people off a bit, because let's be honest, people want to sometimes have everything done for them and they don't want to go back to the zeros and the ones again. But unfortunately, because we're not looking at the mechanics, we've been losing the war. So it's time to bring back, you know, the playing field and kick some butt. What are your final words there, Chief?
Yeah, that's the whole thing, right? And plus, it'll be a prelude into the second version, since we're updating a new version of CPENT that's going to be even better than the first one, because the first one, to be fair, we had to reach certain percentage of qualifications that people pass it. Second one, we don't have that restriction, so I'll put deception, decoys, all that type of stuff back in it.
But plus our program, because we're going to be doing this under our umbrella, so whilst we're not trying to compete with anybody, we just want to go out there and add the bells and the whistles. So showing the toolkits, showing what we do in the
go above and beyond
job.
So if you take the class with us, especially live, it'll be above and beyond, because we'll share with you our own tools and hardware devices.
Well, there's going to be 3 trainers. So having 3 people, there's going to be senior and then junior, but junior are really kicking some butt, as we've been saying. So you got some top players, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep, absolutely.
We look forward to seeing you all on the course, folks.
Sign up. Click down here and sign up.
Exactly. We appreciate it. Thank you.
You got to put one of those little bars up. Click down here and sign up.
Click down here, and click that button there. Boom.
Like Joe Rogan and all those people do.